I never imagined that swiping right on Tinder would lead me into a terrifying encounter with a girl that I met on this platform. My name is Jake, and this is the bone-chilling tale of how a seemingly ordinary online date transformed into a nightmarish ordeal with the supernatural. It all began one sweltering summer evening when I found myself hopelessly bored. I had recently moved to a remote part of Arizona for a job opportunity, leaving behind the familiar comforts of city life. Loneliness had become my constant companion, and the thought of spending another night alone in my dimly lit apartment was unbearable. So I decided to give Tinder a shot, hoping to find some companionship, maybe even love. I swiped left and right through countless profiles, each one more mundane than the last. It seemed like everyone in this small desert town was content with a life of solitude. But just when I was about to give up hope, her profile appeared on my screen. Her name was Sarah, and her pictures exuded an enchanting allure. She had captivating hazel eyes and a radiant smile that made my heart race. Her bio mentioned a love for hiking and a passion for stargazing, both of which I shared. It was as if the universe had orchestrated our meeting. I sent her a message, and to my surprise, she responded almost immediately. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, as if we'd known each other for years. Sarah was witty, intelligent, and had a great sense of humor. We talked about our favorite hiking spots, our dreams, and even the strange and inexplicable. It was during one of these conversations that she casually mentioned skinwalkers. "Have you ever heard of skinwalkers?" she asked. I'd vaguely heard the term before, mostly in passing references to Native American folklore. "Yeah, I think so. Weren't they shape-shifting witches or something?" Sarah nodded, her expression growing serious. "That's right. They're believed to be malevolent witches or medicine men who can transform into animals. The Navajo people take them very seriously. It's said that even speaking about them can draw their attention." I chuckled, dismissing it as a local superstition. "You don't really believe in that stuff, do you?" She didn't answer immediately. "Some stories, Jake, have a kernel of truth in them. It's always best to be cautious." I brushed off her warning, thinking she was simply trying to spook me. Sarah and I continued talking for days, and our connection deepened. We soon decided to meet in person, and she suggested a remote hiking trail known for its stunning views and solitude. As the day of our meeting approached, a sense of unease settled over me. I couldn't shake Sarah's warning about skinwalkers, no matter how irrational it seemed, but I pushed those thoughts aside, convincing myself that such legends had no place in the modern world. The day of our hike arrived, and the sun blazed mercilessly in the sky. Sarah greeted me with that same enchanting smile, and any lingering doubts I had were replaced by excitement. We set off on our hike, navigating the arid trails and taking in the breathtaking vistas. The day passed without incident, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, we decided to head back to the trailhead. But that's when things took a sinister turn. As we walked, I noticed a peculiar sensation creeping over me. It felt as if we were being watched, and the once familiar surroundings became strange and unsettling. Sarah must have felt it too, for she suddenly stopped in her tracks and turned to me, her eyes filled with fear. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. I nodded, my heart quickening. "Yeah, something doesn't feel right." We continued walking, the sensation of being watched growing more oppressive with each step. The woods around us seemed to close in, and a frigid wind whispered eerie secrets through the trees. Sarah gripped my arm tightly, her knuckles turning white. "We need to leave," she urged. But as we quickened our pace, a spine-chilling howl pierced the air, causing us to freeze in our tracks. It was a sound unlike anything I'd ever heard, agonized and inhuman. Panic surged through us, and without a second thought we bolted, desperate to escape whatever unseen presence lurked in the shadows. As we ran, I stole a glance at Sarah, and my blood turned to ice. Her face had twisted, her eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity, and her body contorted as she transformed into a grotesque creature. Then I realized that those sounds were made by her. She was the skinwalker, The monster let out another bone-chilling howl, and I stumbled to my feet, sprinting away from the monstrosity that had once been my date. The forest seemed to twist and distort around me as I ran, and the creature's pursuit grew closer. My heart raced, and I knew I couldn't outrun it for long. Desperation pushed me forward until I burst through the tree line and onto a deserted road. I didn't stop running until I reached the nearest town, gasping for breath. When I finally looked around, I realized that the town was deserted. Cars sat abandoned, lights were off, and an eerie silence enveloped everything. It was as though time itself had stopped. Trembling, I entered a small convenience store and found a dusty old newspaper. The date on the newspaper was decades old, and the front page was filled with stories of mysterious disappearances and bizarre occurrences in the area. As I read on, the lights in the convenience store flickered and the temperature dropped. The sensation of being watched returned, and I knew that the Skinwalker had followed me. I had to find a way to survive this nightmare and escape. I grabbed a can of gasoline from a shelf and drenched the interior of the store, creating a makeshift barrier. Then, I lit a match and watched as the flames roared to life, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The Skinwalker let out a guttural howl, a mix of rage and agony as it slammed against the glass doors trying to reach me. I sprinted out of the store, my heart pounding, and ran down the desolate streets until I stumbled upon an old church. I rushed inside, hoping that the sanctity of the place would offer some protection. As I caught my breath, I saw a priest standing at the altar, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and resignation. "Father, you have to help me," I pleaded. He nodded slowly. "I can offer you sanctuary, my child, but there's only so much I can do." With those words, the doors to the church swung shut, and a bone-chilling silence descended upon us. I could still sense the Skinwalker's presence lurking just outside the building, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Hours passed in that eerie stillness, and the priest and I exchanged stories. He told me about the legends of Skinwalkers and how they were believed to be cursed individuals who had given up their humanity for dark powers. He also mentioned that they were nearly impossible to kill, their resilience tied to their insatiable hunger for human flesh. As the night wore on, the church's candles began to flicker, and the temperature dropped even further. The priest urged me to stay hidden, warning that the Skinwalker would not give up easily. We heard the creature's haunting howls, each one closer than the last. With dawn approaching, I knew I couldn't stay hidden forever. The priest handed me an old, weathered book filled with ancient prayers and incantations. He said that these were the only things that might offer protection against the Skinwalker. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the stained glass windows, the Skinwalker launched its final assault on the church. It shattered windows, tore at the doors, and unleashed a barrage of blood-curdling shrieks. I clutched the book, reciting the prayers with all the conviction I could muster. The Skinwalker's assault grew more frantic, and the church seemed to quake with its fury. But as the prayers intensified, the creature's howls grew weaker, and it finally retreated, vanishing into the desert like a wisp of smoke. With the threat gone, I emerged from the church shaken and battered. The priest offered me a solemn nod, and I knew that he had seen horrors in this town that no one should ever have to witness. I never saw Sarah again, and I couldn't bring myself to return to the world of online dating. The experience had left me scarred, and the memory of her transformation into that malevolent creature haunted my every thought. I left that small desert town, leaving behind the legends and terrors that had engulfed my life. But the chilling encounter with the Skinwalker would forever remain etched in my memory, a reminder that some horrors lurk in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As I drove away from that forsaken place, I couldn't help but wonder how many others had fallen victim to the secrets of the desert, their stories lost to the sands of time, and the Skinwalkers that still roamed the wilderness, hungry for human souls. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and press the notification bell. See you again next time.